Radiant flame within my heart, help me to recognize all thou art. Help me to see thyself in all. Help me to show mind how to fall. All of thy glories from the sun, till earth's great victory is won. I am the love, so after all, I am the love, so hear my call. I am, I am, I am, I am. I hear your call, my children dear. I am your heart, so never fear. I am your mind and body too. I am in every cell of you. I am the earth and sea and sky, and not one soul can I pass by. I am indeed, thou art in me. I am thy victory. Radiant flame within my heart, help me to recognize all thou art. Help me to see thyself in all. Help me to show mind how to fall. All of thy glories from the sun, till earth's great victory is won. I am the love, so after all, I am the love, so hear my call. I am, I am, I am, I am, I am. Radiant flame within my heart, help me to recognize all thou art. Help me to see thyself in all. Help me to show mind how to fall. All of thy glories from the sun, till earth's great victory is won. I am the love, so after all, I am the love, so hear my call. I am, I am, I am, I am. I hear your call, my children dear. I am your heart, so never fear. I am your mind and body too. I am in every cell of you. I am the earth and sea and sky, and not one soul can I pass by. I am indeed, thou art in me. I am thy victory. Radiant flame within my heart, help me to recognize all thou art. Help me to see thyself in all. Help me to show mind how to fall. All of thy glories from the sun, till earth's great victory is won. I am the love, so after all, I am the love, so hear my call. I am, I am, I am, I am, I am. Radiant flame within my heart, help me to recognize all thou art. Help me to see thyself in all. Help me to show mind how to fall. All of thy glories from the sun, till earth's great victory is won. I am the love, so after all, I am the love, so hear my call. I am, I am, I am, I am. I hear your call, my children dear. I am your heart, so never fear. I am your mind and body too. I am in every cell of you. I am the earth and sea and sky, and not one soul can I pass by. I am indeed, thou art in me. I am thy victory. Radiant flame within my heart, help me to recognize all thou art. Help me to see thyself in all. Help me to show mind how to fall.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called Ground Yourself in Grace. Relax into the divine presence for more peace, clarity, and love. My name is Stephen Dyna. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network. And really at the heart of the Shift Network is a process of spiritual awakening. And there are a few teachers in the world, I believe, who are at the level of depth and profundity and integrative wholeness that our featured faculty today is. Her name is Miranda Macpherson. She has taught many times for Shift. She's really a teacher's teacher. So many spiritual teachers come to her as a guide, as a catalyst, as somebody who really understands the full depth and breadth of the path. She's also an author of a book called Way of Grace and a kirtan musician as well. So Miranda, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you, Stephen. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, I want to say right up front that we're excited to dive in with Miranda, but we also have a brand new opportunity to go deep with her. It's very unusual to have this opportunity. She mainly just works with advanced students, has wait lists for her programs, but there's an opportunity called the Way of Grace. We'll share a little bit more about towards the end of the hour. So, Miranda, let's begin today with a little bit about your journey of grace and grounding in grace. I know it's sometimes come through difficult circumstances that really call you into a next level of embodying the path of grace as well. And so let's hear a little bit about that from your perspective.
Yeah. Well, I think it really begins in my childhood, as, so many of our gifts and what we're really here to bring forth does. And I grew up in Perth, Western Australia, and I had many just natural experiences, as I think often children do, of just experiencing the vastness of the sea and sky that was my playground on these wonderful beaches, and just glimpses of feeling and knowing that I was naturally part of something that I experienced as a vast openness and light. But as we all do, I fell from grace in the process of developing a personality structure, as is the case for all of us. And I remember, very gradually the light that I somehow naturally had access to and knew and felt getting dimmer and dimmer and dimmer, and things getting heavier. And I struggled with things like I just didn't understand why adults and so many people just seemed to be mean and unkind to one another. And I didn't get why. It didn't make any sense to me. And it hurt, not even when that was coming my way, but when that was happening one person towards one another in school and, my family and everyone around me. Long and short of it is I fell into a deep depression when I was 13 years old. And when I really look at that very formative depression experience, I realized that at the core it was a disconnection from, the source of love, the source of meaning, the source of value, was really an embodiment of my struggle to be here in a positive and full way. And in my darkest moment, and I was hospitalized at this moment, I began to pray to a God I didn't know I believed in because I didn't come from a religious family at all. And it wasn't a very enlightened prayer. I really just wanted to not exist anymore. And in that opening, I experienced a sort of a surrender through exhaustion, really. And that surrender opened me into a state that I now understand was a non-dual state of boundless love, of the deepest connection with a love that doesn't come and go, and that it felt like being plugged into the mains of the primordial goodness of existence. And in that, knowing I was within and part of that goodness, part of that love, that was the meaning and purpose of my life and of everyone's life. And it showed me not only it reconnected me, it had a very powerful impact on me that allowed me to say yes to life and to go back into the environments that I had so struggled with before from a place inside where I knew, that wasn't the only reality. It also put me very firmly on the spiritual path. And so from the point of being 13, I started to study, and I was, reading everything I could get my hands on that spoke about this deeper truth of reality that is unified and loving and meaningful and real, more real than what we see going on in this world, and that we are within and part of. So I started to study biographies of Hindu saints. That's partly what I could get my hands on. I cracked open some Gurdjieff and Ouspensky, really kind of mystical stuff. I started to study yoga, and I went to anything that I could that spoke to meditation. When I got a little older, I started to study as a Sufi. I studied with a Zen master. I entered seminary training in my 20s. I was really on fire because once you have a taste of this, there's no turning back. And so one thing led to another, and I went through seminary training, and my teacher at the time asked me to create the first interfaith seminary training in Europe, and I was living in England at the time. So I did that, and it was, tricky, difficult. I was very unprepared, and the real miracle was that anyone took the young 26-year-old who started this seriously. But, I came to a point with that in my mid-30s where I started to feel like I was kind of done and that I wasn't growing anymore. And I had the opportunity to go to India, and I'd been to India many times before, at this time to the ashram that was Ramana Maharshi's ashram. It's become pretty famous now because it's in a place called Tiruvannamalai that's become kind of non-duality central for people that want to study self-inquiry. And at that time in my life, I didn't have any special connection to Ramana Maharshi. I was not seeking anything new. I was really just kind of grateful to have a little space, to meditate a lot, to just be quiet. And it was a great place to do that. And one day when I was meditating in the cave that was where he had lived for many years, I was just taken into a whole other dimension that has really become the foundation for everything I'm sharing now. So I just relaxed into meditation. For once, I wasn't seeking to get anywhere special, and I was really absorbed into a depth of silence that really no concept can describe. But I heard this transmission: be nothing, do nothing, get nothing, become nothing, seek for nothing, relinquish nothing, be as you are, rest in God. So that was like dying and being reborn to a reality that was beyond any concept, that dissolved and absorbed all the concepts I had about the spiritual path, about God, about who I was. So it was an enormous change in my life, really, that changed where I would, my experience of myself, my experience of reality, all of it. And that is the point of deep spiritual work, is to change where you're coming from inside, where you're abiding in, what Carlos Castaneda called our assemblage point. Well, my assemblage point was very powerfully changed by this, and it started to bring about all sorts of changes in my personal life situation. All of the structures that had held my familiar reality and identity in place started to come apart without me trying to change anything. And within 6 months of that, everything that was familiar to me was gone. The work that I did, the marriage that I was in, the country that I lived in, the whole life that I had built around who I thought I was, had all come down. And I had learned enough prior to this moment to know that when these big changes happen involuntarily, the wise thing to do is just to say yes rather than no. I knew that, to say okay. And so I said okay into a mystery that I could not control, and it asked for surrender on every level. So, of course, it's one thing saying okay conceptually, but it's another thing when we come up to our edges where we're asked to let go of things we're attached to or our familiar way of navigating through the world. And so I had to learn to adapt to what at first felt like a level of vulnerability that felt like having no skin. And that's often how it is for us when we're entering in, we're beyond our self-concepts, we're entering into a new level of experience and being. At first it feels vulnerable, and that's only because we haven't yet adapted to being that more open, right? So I had to learn to adapt to that level of boundarylessness. That doesn't mean I couldn't say no to things or have an ordinary level boundary, but where my center of abiding was, not based on personality and history and past and concept anymore. So it was profoundly blissful, and the peace was beyond what I could describe. And yet, that's not always so easy. It's a big adjustment. So in that year after the cave awakening, when I would come to my edges, I would pray, even though my whole concept or understanding of God had totally gone too. But I would just lean into that presence that spoke in the cave, and I would pray, what now? And the answer that would come would always be the same. It would be, just keep opening, just keep softening, just keep allowing. And every single time that would bring me into the present moment, into deep peace, into a trust of the mystery that was unfolding, and an allowing it to just lead the way, including it would bring forth, it would just move me into the specifics of action that needed to be taken in very complex situations, like how to move to the United States from the UK and get legal, and when I didn't know anybody. Big things. I trained myself to not lead, not reconstellate as an ego to try to function. It was a huge deal. So when I would come to my edge of the capacity, okay, again, I would ask, okay, how much opening, softening, and allowing? How much more? And the response that came was always, until your surrender is total, which of course made complete sense, right? The whole point of spiritual endeavor is to let go completely, to relax all the way back into the source of our being, to the point where we recognize that it's the divine that's living through us. It's this body, this heart, this mind belongs to God, is an embodiment, an extension of the divine, is powered by the divine, for the divine. Right? It's one thing to know that conceptually, but it's a whole process to let that actually land in your way of being and to let life be lived from that place. And it's a process, of course. And so for me, the way I'm built, anytime there has been a realization, whether it's a realization of boundless love, whether it's a realization of the absolute, right, of pure presence, of awake awareness, which are all different flavors of non-dual realization. And there are many kinds of realization. It's endless. The divine is infinite, right? But every time something new opens in me and I go through a new process of adjustment, and I'm always interested in how can this experience that's happened to me, that opens up all these new possibilities, that brings peace and freedom and clarity alive, how can that be replicated so that others can have this experience too? I mean, I just think like that, right? So I always go back over what happened to me. Is there anything that I did, right, that helped that to happen? How can others experience it? So I kind of inquire and study what went on and then really mine the gold within that experience. And so as I was doing that, naturally it started to form itself into a body of teachings on grace, surrender, and ego relaxation. And I saw many things that were just really beautiful and that I really didn't know before. For example, that grace isn't just a blessing that fills our heart and makes us feel wonderful and helps us feel a little less anxious. It does that, but it's so much more. It actually comes alive in 4 dimensions that have a very specific action on our soul that help us to be deeper and wiser and more real in our ordinary human life and allow all sorts of further spiritual infinite possibilities. What I didn't know before was that grace is our unchanging ground, our foundation. And when we know that, we can relax. There's a possibility for surrender to really happen. We can open into the unknown without getting so freaked out. We can let go of outdated mechanisms. We can let the residue of our conditioning and misunderstanding let go into something deeper. That grace is also the blessings that come to nourish us and heal us and uplift us so that we can flourish and thrive as we're all supposed to. That grace is also the transforming power that you and I, our ego doesn't do spiritual transformation. Rather, we learn to relax our interference and work with these time-tested spiritual technologies of forgiveness, of discriminating awareness, of compassion, of loving kindness, of presence. And in that, there's a power that comes over us that takes us somewhere new and transforms our suffering into wisdom. But that ultimately the whole point of this is for us to embody grace, to become the more grounded, resilient, open, wise, responsive human beings we're capable of being, and that our world really needs us to be now more than ever. And that we can learn to embody grace in every moment, even in chaotic and difficult situations. And that this grace that we need for all stages of the path is available to us. And it's available not through trying to push past or transcend your humanity, It doesn't come by trying to beat yourself up for having an ego. It comes through a beautiful practice that I call ego relaxation. I could say a lot more about this, but
Hmm.
maybe you want to say something too at this point, Stephen.
Well, first, I just thank you for the wisdom in all of what you've shared of your journey. There's so many layers of deep surrender and opening that clearly you've gone through. And I want to sort of focus a little bit on this really key around lack of or no longer resisting, just embracing what is and sort of softening, opening more, doing nothing, not striving to change things. And how do you do that when the situations in the outer world really are so activating? So it's like
Yeah,
it could be a collective thing, politics as an example. It could be
absolutely.
breakup
Yeah.
of a marriage. There's like things that just really activate and animate us. Then how do you turn that into that kind of a keto into the softening and allowing and opening?
Right. So this is a really important question, and everything that I'm sharing at this time in my teachings is really oriented to the fact that we are in very activating times. And even if you don't think you're a political person, we are all being impacted by the intensity. And I want to say not just here in the United States, but in 49 countries across the world are going to the polls today. No, 64 actually. 64 countries across the world are going to the polls in 2024. That means approximately 49% of the world's population, right? That's big. And so what's going to happen will impact us on so many levels, depending on who gets in power and their policies on climate change, on human rights, on the war in Ukraine and Gaza, so many things. It's a big deal. So it's hard not to get triggered. And of course, we all go through difficult things in our personal life where, a marriage might be going through a rocky patch, or we might have just been given a cancer diagnosis, or someone we love is been given a cancer diagnosis, right? So this is where the ground of grace is really important. And this is the most overlooked dimension of grace, and it's the most foundational. So, grace is always here, right? Ramana Maharshi said that grace is always present. But he said, you think that it's something that has to descend, that's high in the sky.
Mm.
But he said, grace is really inside you. And when your mind subsides back into its source, the grace you need rushes forth, sprouting as if a spring from within you. And the paradox is you can't grasp for it. So you have to be here and do nothing and be willing to feel whatever you're feeling. Right? That sounds really simple. Like the mind goes, how could that possibly work? It works because what's blocking you experiencing the grace and the infinite support and intelligence and love that you need to navigate challenging situations peacefully and with clarity and wisdom is always there. But if you're holding on to your primary self-construct that you are a separate somebody that has to figure it out and fix it, then basically you're running off the strategies of a 5-year-old, right? Our ego structure got laid down, is pretty much set by the time you're 5. And then you're just trying harder to make these workarounds that are based in a misunderstanding of reality work. And all of that flapping around, from the consciousness of separate somebodyness, trying to figure it out and fix it, is what's blocking the flow of grace that you need. So the challenge is to learn how to stop for a moment, ground yourself in the recognition that you exist because of something so much deeper than your mind and your history and your thoughts and your worries. Just like a wave cannot arrive except as part of the ocean, right? An individual wave arises in space, time, in a moment, and it arises out of the body of the ocean. It is the ocean. It's powered by the ocean. It is an extension of the ocean. And so too are we. We do not have independent existence, and the primary delusion of humanity is that we think we do, and we're operating from that paradigm that's just clunky. that doesn't have a lot of resource, that only knows how to revert to the strategies of the past and try harder. And all that flapping around is creating a lot of unnecessary stress and struggle, and it's blocking a deeper possibility that is more potent and wise and graceful. So it begins with turning our attention into the present moment and bringing our awareness into the fact that right now you exist within something so vast, so infinite, so powerful, so intelligent, and that you didn't make that happen. Your effort has nothing to do with the fact that that's what's so. And so as we turn our attention to recognize we are within and part of something so much deeper than we can even fathom, and that it is beneficent and powerful and loving and wise, we can actually just let ourselves feel whatever we're feeling. There is holding and support to feel grief, to feel that we don't know what to do, we don't know how the future will be, we don't know whether our marriage will make it. We can be in touch with what is so in our relative human experience, and we don't have to just try to bat that away. We can meet it honestly, kindly, be with it, and we can relax the need to figure it out and fix it from our ordinary ego mind, because that's not where the answer can come from. Our ego trying to figure it out and troubleshoot is just very limited. Why would you try to fly with the tiny wings of a sparrow when the mighty wings of an eagle have been given? But we must surrender the trying. We must let our consciousness ground back into that which is deeper, that which has always been the source, that which has always been the power, right? That's where the answers come from, and we need to settle there first. That does not mean that we collapse. It does not mean that we don't take action. It does not mean we abdicate our responsibilities. Quite the contrary. It means we let the ego mind return to the source. And then we can ask what's needed. As I was demonstrating, that's how I learned to practice. Okay, what now? How do we meet this now? What's the way that serves?
Mhm. So it's not that we ultimately stop doing indefinitely, it's where that the doing emerges out of that deeper ground, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, it's that we relax the ego doing, which is why I call this ego relaxation. We see, understand, and relax our ego construct, our ego conditioning, and our ego activity, the pushing and the pulling, and the trying of basically an inner child that's trying to figure it out and is disconnected. That has to relax first. And that's, a very detailed, simple but detailed practice, because often we don't see where we're caught in that construct and in that history and that patterning. So there's no ego relaxation or surrender without seeing our ego, and not seeing it with judgment, seeing it from compassion, seeing it from loving awareness, and then letting it melt into a deeper reality.
Hmm. What do you recommend if there is a lot of self-judgment, which I think most people are carrying, so the ego is sort of at odds with parts of our ego, and so that judgment is there. So how do you get to the space of seeing our full self without judgment and all the character?
Yeah, well, this is why I create a whole body of teachings, because most of us need quite a bit of help to let ego relaxation happen in all the ways it needs to. So in part of my teachings, I give a significant levels of teaching on what we call the superego. And it starts with learning to drop the knife of judgment, to recognize our inner violence. And that's what self-judgment and judgment of others actually is. It's the instrument where we reify separation through harshness, through making right and making wrong. It's the ego's distortion of discrimination, of course. And so we need to relax the ego's version of discrimination, which is judgment, that often is what's creating this awful battle in our mind, like Gollum and Lords of the Ring, having arguments with ourselves, right? That really disturbs our inner peace tremendously and interrupts the possibility of abiding in natural great peace. So we need to we need to see that, understand that, learn how to work with it. And there are many things that can help us relax out of that judgment, drop that knife of judgment. Things like bringing alive humor in a certain kind of way, things like bringing our compassion forward through prayer, working with a mantra can help us with that. And sometimes just the clarity of awareness that helps us to shift our allegiance. Often we're automatically loyal to that voice of judgment because it's a way we introjected the voices of our parents and our authority figures when we were young to learn how to navigate the world and become independent from them. But spiritually, we're not yet autonomous from our parents in our head. And so we're loyal without seeing why. So there's a lot of nuance to what allows that to be possible so we can be truly free of that kind of chitch and chatter inside that's cluttering up our natural great peace.
So beautifully shared. I know you also want to take us on a guided process to experience this in a deeper way. How about we do that now?
Sure. So, friends, I invite you just to close your eyes. And just turn your awareness to the feeling of the sensation of your body on the chair or whatever you're sitting or lying on. Maybe you have your feet on the ground. So taking in the contact with the chair and the ground, just take in the fact that there is some basic support in the here and now. That doesn't require anything for you, doesn't ask you to be any way in particular, it's just here. Bring your awareness to the sensation of the breath. As if each inhale is a welcome, and each exhale is a natural, spontaneous surrender. Notice that every breath is alive with sustaining, loving presence. Oxygen from the plant kingdom that you don't have to earn or deserve. It's just so. Sense into your lower body. And particularly your base chakra. As if your lower body and your base chakra could breathe. Sensing contact not only with a physical chair, the physical earth, but a presence that's even deeper than that. Just as our earth exists within the vast space of the galaxy that is holding and yet empty, consider the possibility that there is a presence here that is subtle but substantial, that is always here, that is never rocked and does not change. It may feel as if you are sitting within a mountain of infinite presence. A mountain of infinite intelligence and love. That rises up to offer total support for you. To just be here, exactly as you are. And that here you have total ground to get quiet and still. Here you have a ground that is independent from your past. Bigger and deeper than your problems. Independent of your thoughts, your emotions, your history. Relax down into this. This total support to be here. To be with deeply the important themes of your life right now. To be with what we are experiencing together as a human family. Relax down into an unshakable presence. What you are within and powered by. Grace that is the animating force of it all. Where your fears can melt. Where you're trying to figure it out can melt. Where the need to control or push can melt. With the clarity and the wisdom for the true way forward for you and for all of us is ever present. So take a deep breath. And see what's coming alive in your experience right now. When you recognize what you are within and supported by. What comes alive when you recognize what you are within and supported by. And notice how that is for you in your body. In your heart, in your mind.
Thank you for that. Feels challenging to even speak coming out of there because there's just that vast, open, alive presence that becomes really palpable.
Yeah, well, I think what's really beautiful is that we can, from that depth, just relax and the truth speaks itself.
Mm.
You know, our natural wisdom can come forward, our noble qualities, our love, right? Our compassion, our empathy, the gifts that we have inside of us get liberated from the tentacles of ego that limits the possibilities, and it doesn't have to.
Mm.
Yeah.
How does this translate for you into daily practice? What are the
Well, I
methods that you
really
find?
live into what's needed now. So I've learned to befriend the feeling of I don't know, when it feels like there's too much on my plate, or there's not enough time, or, this is a complex situation. How do we thread the needle here? And so I've trained myself to really live into what I'm speaking, right? To stop and sense my body on the ground, recognize what I'm within, recognize who is the doer. It's not my ego, it's not a personality, right? So then I ask, okay, what's needed now? Sometimes these days I really don't even have to ask. I just relax, and then it's just something arises. I find myself moved. Oh, this, let go of that. This is more important right now. Or
Mm.
the words just come out, and it never ceases to amaze me how miraculous this is, even though this has been my practice for a long time now. It keeps unfolding and getting more potent and precise. The surrender, which isn't something I do, it's more something I learn to allow. It feels like I'm not doing anything, and yet a lot is happening.
Mm.
And I notice this every time I come off another retreat. I've just come off another 8-day retreat. And I notice in my work with people, I'm saying less, I'm doing less, but they're just having deeper realization in front of me.
Mm.
And it's like, wow, it really is the presence that is more intelligent than us. And that personally gives me great hope at this time when things seem pretty difficult in our world.
Mm.
It gives me hope that, the answers we need to evolve as a society and learn to navigate, fear and division and hatred and the really ugly stuff that's here, that's going to come from a deeper place, and that deeper place is our foundation, and it's in everyone. And that's why I dedicate my life to helping as many as possible experience this, access it, and learn to orient from it. So it's not just getting a bit of grace, having a little respite from your anxiety. That's absolutely on the table, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot more that's available, a
Mm.
lot more that's possible.
Mm.
It's more possible than we think. So that's why I've developed these bodies of teaching that have all come from my asking and listening. How do we help them see this? How do we help them relax that habit? There are very different ways that ego moves and manifests that limit the possibilities. So my kind of passion really is to see, what's the little magic line of inquiry, or the meditation that we can direct their attention, and how does the mantra work to help bring a broom of a transmission to sweep through the dust of ego and clear the way so we can see things more clearly and respond more elegantly, with more precision and power and depth.
In describing today, one of the things we said was finding a deeper seat in meditation. And I think
Yeah.
that sounds like it connects with when you're reflecting on the assemblage point, sort of shifts of your sense of identity. And maybe you could share a little bit more about how in our formal or active meditation practice we can kind of find that deeper seat.
Yeah. There's a lot of ways. I teach various different kinds of meditations and that have come in response to some things I've needed to help me in my meditation practice and what I've seen in my long-term students. So, for example, one of the things that can really help us is as we dedicate our practice to the benefit of all beings, we can open ourselves. If there's an enlightened being we have a meaningful connection to, for some people it's Jesus. For me, obviously, it's Ramana Maharshi. My meditation begins with bowing on a photograph of Ramana Maharshi, putting my forehead to his forehead and asking for his grace on my practice, asking for a hand of an enlightened being on your crown, which, by the way, is a practice we see in some schools of Tibetan Buddhism. So that can help a great deal. So can, little hacks like certain mudras when we're doing the mountain of presence meditation, for example, having our hands in the containment mudra, that mudra we often see the Buddha in, and that thumb of just resting on the deep belly can actually help us sense, get out of the mind and sense. Sometimes we can, playfully put out a cushion for our resistance. I recommend this all the time to people, that most people experience either resistance either in getting to their meditation or resistance within their meditation. So I usually just say, okay, let's put out a cushion or a chair, and that's specifically for your resistance, for the part of you that struggles, for the part of you that doesn't get to it, or the part of you that shows up as a kind of a agitation or a monkey mind within your practice. Don't fight it, welcome it, let it be here. And it's interesting what happens when we name something and give it welcome. It usually ceases to be such a problem.
So true.
It's like a child. If you tell a child, stop crying and go to your room, what's going to happen? The child's probably going to have a tantrum and make a big mess. But if you get down on that child's level and you go, hey, what's up? Like, what do you need? Like, and you really are present. It tells you, and it can release the stress, and we move forward. It's not such a big deal. So we need to work with ourselves in that kind of a way and not just try to muscle on through. I think that's really out of date.
Well, Miranda, there's such depth of wisdom that pours through you, and it's really so clear that you are in this deep inquiry for the best motives for all who can benefit. And so I want to spend some time now talking about your program coming up, which is really quite an extraordinary and unusual opportunity to be able to do a deep dive into this body of work you've created. It's called The Way of Grace, Awaken to the Divine Presence Within for a Fulfilled Life. For this program, we really wanted to go beyond a typical like 7-week or even 10-week program to really give people a chance to steep in these teachings, to steep in the practices, to open to the many dimensions of grace that you have articulated and designed practices and inquiry around so that we can really change our assemblage point and open to a deeper ground of being instead of as a state, but as a long-term capacity that we have built and connection that we built. So I'd love for you to share first your high level intentions for this program, and then we'll go through some of the details of what people can expect.
Yeah. Well, my intention really is to just say, hey, look, friends, I'm offering you a hand of spiritual friendship and a map and some really profound practices that can really make all the difference for you, because as far as I'm concerned, the missing key on most people's spiritual path is grace. Right? The whole point is your ego can't do it. So we need to retire from all that hard work we do of trying to do spiritual, but still from the perspective of ego. Right? We need grace to walk the path, and we also need a community. We need one another. And a big part of how the practical part of the exercises work is not just meditation. You also do inquiry in dyads, because our ego got formed and patterned in relationship. We usually need a certain kind of contact with other human beings, but a contact that is spacious and unconditional, in order to access things in ourself that aren't as easy to access, that are more vulnerable. So that's all built into the design of how we practice. And I want to take people on a journey through the 4 dimensions of grace and how to let all 4 of those dimensions wake up and come alive to help you navigate these enormous times, these very provocative times, with more depth and substance and wisdom, and also to access deeper dimensions of consciousness so you can go a lot further on the path. So in the first module, I want to kind of give the foundations that, even for people that I might have taught many years, I still keep learning more about what grace is, what ego relaxation is, how surrender happens. So even if people have studied with me before, I guarantee you're going to hear something new as I take you through module 1. What is grace? What is surrender? How does the practice of ego relaxation really work? So I'll take you through what softening, opening, allowing our experience to unfold looks like, means, and get a sense of learning how to work with this as a practice in our lives. I want to take you through the deeper philosophical foundations of each of the 4 dimensions of grace and what the work is, what surrender looks like in each of these 4 dimensions, because it's different. It's not all the same. I want to take you in module 2 through a journey on what I call the pillars of awakening at an advanced level. So these pillars are really, they appear in many of the world's great wisdom traditions as virtues or important things, and they appear again and again and again because they help us to address the primary issues of all human egos and surrender into deeper possibilities. So I want to take you through a deeper teaching on how to trust the loving goodness underlying your life. What's involved in that, how that can happen without it just being a platitude. How we can learn to develop a love affair with truth itself, even if we're not even sure what that really is. I'm going to be giving you a free gift of a teaching on curiosity over Thanksgiving week, and a practice that is a holistic form of diving through consciousness with inquiry that's really juicy. I want to take you through a whole teaching on how to drop the knife of judgment, how to cease and desist the kind of inner violence that clutters the way and takes away from the compassion and protection that you really need. I want to take you on a journey through what humility really is, and it's not what you think. How we become open and deeply receptive to the subtle states of grace, and how you can develop real willingness and patience so that surrender can actually happen and you can really get out of the way. And then after that, I want to open up a very explicit portion of the journey that's about the importance of devotion on the spiritual path, the place of prayer and mantra and devotional practice, even if what you're into is the more non-dual aspects of spiritual practice. Because what I've found is that without devotion, you will not be able to come all the way home. That devotion is the powerhouse that activates the deep heart's love for reality. And once that gets switched on, there's nothing that's going to hold you back. There's nothing that's going to inhibit you from facing the things you need to face, seeing what you need to see, and really choosing reality over your defenses. So we'll look at what prayer looks like, how it moves, when where we are is on the journey to the divine, when our experience of our path is we're on a journey with the divine, and what prayer can look like when we're really opening into the non-dual, when there's not a subject-object anymore. And I want to open up an explicit teaching about mantra as a medicine, like what mantra does, and particularly Sanskrit mantras, particularly empowered mantras. And by the way, I'm giving people a whole package of newly recorded mantras from my new album as a bonus, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later. But I want to talk about how people understand why this is helpful to us, what mantra does, how it purifies our consciousness, how it acts like a broom that sweeps us through with a transmission that have come through the ages, through lineages, with thousands and thousands of beings before us, that not only can help us and change our state very quickly, but it empowers and activates our sincere intentions with the devotion and the love of all these others. So that prepares us to go into what I call the real heart of this way of grace, which is the crossing over of ego identity, with the dissolving and unwinding of your familiar default me-go, we like to call it. That was coined by a late dear friend of mine, Neil Rogan. It's a great term. The me we think we are, but that isn't actually our real self. It's our conditioning, it's our brand, right? Our default mechanism. I want to explore and take people on a journey how to really harness the most difficult material of your life, the thing that keeps tripping you up, and show you how that can become a gate rather than an obstacle. How we can harness the energy bound in that frustration or limitation and let it become fuel that propels us from myself to the self, right? My way to the way, and opens us back into the unified ground of our being where all things are possible. And then I want to take us into a couple of weeks where we'll explore what does it take to abide, to really take our seat in our true nature and stabilize our realization, get more grounded and adapted there so we can meet daily life from a deeper place, from a ground of grace and from loving awareness that can navigate and embrace, the ordinary challenges of life that aren't easy, but that can also keep journeying onward on the journey into deeper possibilities. And to be with complexity and uncertainty without getting so knocked around. Because really, the possibility is for us all to be limitless in power and in peace.
Hmm.
That all comes when we accept grace as our foundation, when we come from unity. So we end the journey, which is really the beginning of an endless journey, in what does it take to embody grace in daily life as you walk this world, as you meet the responsibilities of family, of making a living, of going through the world, of being a member of our society, of showing up. How can we show up fully from our depth at the voting booth? How can we show up from our depth in difficult conversations where we don't agree? How can we show up from our depth in complex times where we're in a process and none of us quite know where this is going, right? How do we keep walking that journey without distance and do so with grace?
Well, what a amazing offering. It's so beautiful. And I can personally attest, having done some work with you in the past and knowing you for many years and watching students and the blossoming in people's lives, that these are real deal spiritual teachings that have been tested, that work, that really have a ground in deep personal realization and that have really worked in community as well. So it's a very unique and beautiful opportunity to do this deep dive with you. And the whole program is laid out in detail at wayofgraceadvanced.com, wayofgraceadvanced.com. So you're going to get all these 7 modules, which have varying lengths. So there's 15 sessions with Miranda, which is going to include interactive exercises. She does a lot of inquiry, mantra practices. There's Q&A time as well, which is a very rich time to ask your deepest, most heartfelt spiritual questions. And you're going to get recordings of every session so you can go back and revisit them for years to come. You'll get video and audio. There's word-for-word transcripts to work with, study, and highlight. There's weekly exercises at home. There's a Facebook community to really create a sense of spiritual community across the globe. And this really helps deepen the experience as well. And on the page at wayofgraceadvance.com, you'll also see a number of extra bonuses that Miranda has agreed to offer to enhance your journey. There's a video teaching called The Practice of Holistic Inquiry. Want to share more about that?
Yeah. Well, I want everybody to really get as much as possible from all the exercises we do. So, inquiry isn't just thinking about stuff. Quite the contrary. It's entering into our experience and journeying and letting the questions take us on a journey. So I love to create very precise and potent questions that are like the cheat's way of cultivating one point of concentration and going into digging deeper into pockets where you would normally just be bouncing around on the surface. And so I kind of give a whole teaching in this video in how you go there, how that happens, how ego relaxation can become dynamic, and it takes its dynamics form in holistic inquiry, and what my methodology for that is. And I also model an inquiry for you, so you get to both have me talk you through the principles, the practice, how it works, what to do, what not to do, and get an example of it actually working in practice. So it was fun to put that together for you, and I hope that it'll really help everybody to, even people who've been with me and done other shift courses, to get a lot more out of everything we do.
Mm. There's also another bonus. It's called the Mahalakshmi Mantra and Visualization. It's a set of audio recordings from Miranda. So you want to share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so some people may know that Lakshmi in the Hindu tradition is the divine feminine that represents the infinite supply of nourishment, of love, of beneficence that helps us to flourish and thrive. And really, she's thought of superficially as abundance, but really it's about dissolving the paradigm of lack, right? I'm not enough, it's not enough, I don't have enough, spiritual poverty. So while we're in the section of the work where we're exploring mantra and devotion, I'm going to give you everyone this as a practice. And it's the mantra that I recorded with Ben Leinbach and Gary Malkin. And we extended it to 25 minutes. And I lead you on a guided visualization through the mantra. It's really exquisite. So I'm delighted to be giving that to people on this course too.
Mm. Great extra bonus. And there's one more that is special when you sign up by midnight tonight. And this is a little way to encourage you to take the time now to tune in, to read through the page at Way of Grace Advanced, to just tune in with your own inner knowing. And if you get sense of moving forward, then you're going to get an extra bonus today if you sign up by midnight. So it's called the Prayer of St. Francis. This is a video dialogue with Miranda and James Twyman. You want to share more about the Prayer of St. Francis bonus?
Yeah, well, James is a very old friend of mine from years back, and I remember we had just this beautiful conversation, and we were really exploring, from his perspective, the prayer of St. Francis, but from my perspective, what does it mean to embody grace in the nitty-gritty moments of life where it isn't easy, What does that look like, and how is that in both of our experiences? And it turned out to just be a very beautiful dialogue, and I know that everyone's going to really enjoy it and that it's very relevant to the times we're in.
Well, that's a great extra reason to sign up right away to get that special bonus. Well, it's truly going to be a blessing for everybody who takes this program. I am quite sure of that. And we've kept the investment very accessible given the length and depth of the program. It's just 4 payments of $274, or you save 10% when you pay in full with one payment of $997. The course is going to begin on October 30th and run Wednesdays at 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern. But even if you can't make the live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings and the transcripts in the community as well. And I particularly also want to draw your attention to the testimonials of people who have worked with Miranda. Miranda is the epitome of what we most need. You'll inhale the fragrance of grace. Let the thirsty cup of your heart be filled, like diving into the source of love and healing. If there's such a thing as angels walking the earth, and Miranda is one. Beautiful testimonials from people who work with her. And I can assure you very personally that she is the real deal and truly walks her talk. So you are in wonderful hands, and you will have a profound spiritual journey that really shifts some things that can make a real difference in your life, and where you're coming from, and the sense of support and grace that can really fill up your life in a new way. So again, it's all laid out in detail at wayofgraceadvanced.com, wayofgraceadvanced.com. So Miranda, we're at the end of our time. It's such a blessing always to be with you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and presence here today. Anything
Yeah.
that's still on your heart you want to share with folks who are considering doing the Way of Grace program with you?
I do. And that's that while these are very challenging, uncertain times that we're in together, and that, we all feel the uncertainty of what's going to happen and how's that going to be. I also want to remind everybody that if you're on a spiritual path, these are very opportune times as well. We can ride the energy and open into it and really harness it for the most constructive possible purpose, and really live into how we can contribute meaningfully to our loved ones, how we can help to access grace and hold down the light, radiate peace and wisdom and clarity for our loved ones and our wider community, so we can show up from our deeper place. And that's something we all can do. And my intention is that this program helps you practically to do that. While this sounds very lofty, I'm a down-to-earth Aussie Sheila, and I would not be doing this or bringing it to you if it didn't practically work. So join me if you feel called, and I really look forward to getting to know you and working with you and journeying with you. And thank you, Stephen, and thank you, everyone at Shift, for making this possible.
Well, thank you so much, Miranda. And thank you all for joining. And if you choose to move forward, you will be blessed. I'm quite sure. And again, it's all at wayofgraceadvance.com. And you get the special dialogue with Miranda and James Twyman when you sign up by midnight tonight, the prayer of St. Francis. So thank you all. Many blessings.
Thank you.
Radiant flame within my heart, help me to recognize all thou art. Help me to see thyself in all. Help me to show mind how to fall. All of thy glories from the sun, till earth's great victory is won. I am the love, so after all, I am the love, so hear my call. I am, I am, I am, I am. I hear your call, my children dear. I am your heart, so never fear. I am your mind and body too. I am in every cell of you. I am the earth and sea and sky, and not one soul can I pass by. I am indeed, thou art in me. I am thy victory. I Radiant flame within my heart, help me to recognize all thou art. Help me to see thyself in all. Help me to show mind how to fall. All of thy glories from the sun, till earth's great victory is won. I am the love, so after all, I am the love, so hear my call. I am, I am, within my heart. Help me to recognize all thou art. Help me to see thyself in all. Help me to show mind how to fall. All of thy glories from the sun, till earth's great victory is won. I am the love, so after all, I am the love, so hear my call. I am, I am, I am, I am. I hear your call, my children dear. I am your heart, so never fear. I am your mind and body too. I am in every cell of you. I am the earth and sea and sky, and not one soul can I pass by. I am indeed, thou art in me. I am thy victory. I am, I am, I am, I am, I Radiant flame within my heart, help me to recognize all thou art. Help me to see thyself in all. Help me to show mind how to fall. All of thy glories from the sun, till earth's great victory is won. I am the love, so after all, I am the love, so hear my call. I am, I am, I am, I am, I am. flame within my heart. Help me to recognize all thou art. Help me to see thyself in all. Help me to show mind how to fall. All of thy glories from the sun, till earth's great victory is won. I am the love, so after all, I am the love, so hear my call. I am, I am, I am, I am. I hear your call, my children dear. I am your heart, so never fear. I am your mind and body too. I am in every cell of you. I am the earth and sea and sky, and not one soul can I pass by. I am indeed, thou art in me. I am thy victory. I am, I am, I am, I Radiant flame within my heart, help me to recognize all thou art. Help me to see thyself in all. Help me to show mine